Every week, players gather at their local game stores. They trade, and they battle valiantly for both fun and glory. But amidst their triumph, only two will make it to the finals to fight. How is it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Final Fights. Tonight, we've got Lucci versus Monkey D. Luffy. Good old purple Luffy. Now, if anybody knows the matchup spread to this, you're going to know that Luffy is a little bit disadvantaged against Lucci. Lucci just so consistently good at clearing the board. That 4-drop Lucci, what a card. That card is just way too freaking good. But anyways, so Lucci ends up losing the die roll, being forced to go first here. Luffy, well, I wouldn't say forced to go first. Probably Lucci actually wanted to win the die roll. Yes, it's weird to see a Navy or a Gecko Moria focused deck going first, but that is because you want to take Purple Luffy off of the play here. Purple Luffy going first, like, significantly increases its win percentage here. So typically, you know, you see this, you're like, oh, that's weird that the Navy decks or the Gecko Moria deck's going second, or first, but it is completely on purpose. So that means Lucci had to have won the dice rolls. I'll correct what I said before, but yeah, so. Pretty solid start from Lucci. Lucci's got a Brook, got a Spandam, able to pick up, I think he picked up a Tempest Kick, which is going to help him out in the long run here. And Luffy being forced to kind of play on that awkward curve here. Didn't see a Zoro Juro this turn, instead decides to go for the Kid. Likely that Kid's not going to be long for this world here, as that trash is filling up on Lucci's side. Got 5 cards in trash right now. Swing with Lucci would get him up to 7. Not enough to fire off a Tempest Kick just yet. Even though, fun little tech, you can play Tempest Kick out with 9 cards in yard. Tempest Kick sees itself as the 10th card, so you still get the -3 here. But that Eustace Captain Kid might end up staying around here, which is actually pretty nice for Luffy here, because likely what they're going to be trying to do next turn is go into the 7-drop Luffy, which minuses 1 Dawn. This Kid brings the Dawn back. But we did see a swing at lead. Decides to block with Luffy because the -1, or block with the Captain Kid because the -1 was put on Kid. Typically, that's what you want to do. If a black player starts minusing your blocker, you might as well block with it, because likely that means they're going to try to have a plan to kill it. But looking at Lucci's hand, doesn't look like he really has a plan to be able to take it down, especially only on 5 Dawn here. Does have could just like hold on, a Lucci out here, but I think I also saw a Khalifa in hand, so maybe that's what he's reaching for with the 4 Dawn. Khalifa's just gonna let him cycle his hand, kind of find some better cards here. His hand is bricking up quite a bit at this point, but kind of thumbing that Dawn might end up just attaching 5 to Spandam and swinging 7k. Who knows what he decides to do here? Maybe giving the Brook away might be a little too dangerous. Brook eventually can lead to some pretty fun plays, but we'll see here what the opponent decides to do. Almost thought about attaching 5 Dawn to something, but instead going to play out exactly what I thought, a Khalifa here. Khalifa's going to reduce it down to 2, but just really needed... actually, he might be putting himself at with the draw 2, trash 2 off of Khalifa, he'll actually put himself at 9 cards in deck here, or in the yard here. Playing Tempest Kick will allow him to go up to 10 cards, and then he can clear the blocker if he wanted to with the Brook attack. But honestly, with there being a potential of a 7-drop Luffy on the next turn, you definitely want to hold on to that Tempest Kick. 7-drop Luffy is a much bigger threat than Kid. Kid is just going to be a little bit of a utility card, likely just going to be blocking for days. And we see good old 7-drop Luffy coming down immediately, looking at another card in his hand. Does he have the Sanji to pair alongside? It looks like he does, so that's pretty solid. Going to get a Dawn back off of the blocker, and then just going to go ahead and swing 5k at lead here. Very interesting to see that. Yep, going to go ahead and swing 7k here. I was about to say, is he going to hold up a Dawn, or is he going to start getting aggressive with the blocker here? And yeah, that's exactly what he's going to be doing, because especially against Lucci, blockers, they're not going to be doing a whole lot of blocking, because they're usually just going to be dead on the following turn. So you might as well just swing with them while you can, especially pressuring a 7k, taking Lucci down to 3, which is pretty great here. Luffy's still sitting at a pretty healthy 4 right now. Does give up that free block, because typically Lucci's not going to be stacking a lot of Dawn on leader, because you really just want, you have to be, the deck requires a lot of Dawn to do things. So exactly, we're going to see the Tempest Kick come out. That's what I called it for. Could have been really greedy last turn and played it on the Kid to try to take the Kid out, but it does look like he has another Tempest Kick in hand, 2 Rebecca's as well, so things are going pretty nicely for Lucci's hand here. It also has a Gecko, and that kind of pretty much sums up the rest of the game plan here. We'll just have to see if Luffy can continue to just apply pressure at this point. Does kind of have the curve they wanted to see. Does see another Tempest kick off here, reducing Luffy down to a good old 1-drop here. Does have a Rebecca. I think there's a Lucci in the yard. I think there's a Spandine in the yard as well. So we could just see a Rebecca, Spandine, Lucci play. What an acronym. I'm so glad they don't have stage anymore. But yeah, he looks through the thumbs through the yard here. Also has a Soap Sheep, but he could line something up here. He could Soap Sheep the Sanji and then swing with lead to reduce the Sanji down to a 2, and then Lucci off the Rebecca to reduce the other 2. So we're going to see a Soap Sheep come down. Soap Sheep's going to -2 to 2 different characters here. Likely just going to be -2 to both those here. And then he can kind of pick and choose which target he wants to take out. Likely it's going to be the Sanji here. But no, he's going to actually favor for the Captain Kid here. I definitely would have killed the Sanji. The Sanji is just going to keep drawing Luffy cards because that Sanji is just going to be turning sideways every single turn because that attack trigger is just so invaluable. And we're going to see for Rebecca should have enough in yard to do the Spandine Lucci combo. Is going to eat up a whole lot of the yard though. Likely going to be seeing a whole lot of events going to the bottom of the deck here. Does have exactly 3 Tempest Kicks going to the bottom here off of Spandine. Spandine's going to grab Lucci. Lucci's going to stick 3 more cards down. Just going to be those cards that you just can't get back. Is very interestingly, well, I had 3 Luccis in yard, so it didn't really matter. He's putting another Lucci on the deck, under the deck here. And just going to play out Lucci. Lucci's going to clean up 2 bodies here and going to take it back to Luffy's turn. Luffy does have at least 1 attacker on board still, the pressure. But that Rebecca is just going to sit there and just keep soaking up attacks here. Luffy does get to draw a card. Luffy is at 9 Don -1 now because he's detached 1. So is at 8 Don. Just going to ramp up to 9 though. Could play out a 9-drop Mom or a 9-drop Luffy here. Does go ahead and combine the Dawn and then decides to swing with the lead here. So likely that's what we're going to see here. Going to play out a 9-drop Luffy. 9-drop Luffy's going to -1. Going to draw a card. Going to swing 10k. I think that 10k is just going at life because there's no reason to try to deal with Lucci's board at this point. Because you never know how long your characters are going to be sticking around. Especially with Lucci going up to 9 Dawn here. Does have a Gecko Moria. Could Gecko into Rebecca into... I think there might be another Spandam in the yard. There might be a Suru as well. There's another Lucci in the yard. Though I don't think there's enough targets to Spandine into Lucci again. Actually, it looks like there are 3 CP targets, so that would he could do it again, but I don't think he has enough resources in hand to be able to reduce that Luffy down to like a 1 or 2 drop here, which would be like best case scenario for Lucci. But Lucci in a very, very commanding position right now, though his hand looks like half of it's bricked up. 2 2Ks in hand, and then the rest of a bunch of bricks there. So Lucci definitely feeling a little bit of pressure with that 10k swing potentially every turn if he can't take care of it here. We're going to see a 5k go at lead. Going to go ahead and -2. Does mill 2 Ice Ages. Not what you want to see in the yard. We really love to have those in hand, especially this turn here. And setting 1 down aside tells you exactly what you need to know. That we've got a good old Gecko Moria coming down this turn, though. Order matters here. You're going to see how he decides to order this here. Gonna potentially give up the Brook swing here. Brook being one source of a way to KO something. Instead, he's just going to use the Brook to -1 cost on the Sanji, not giving a KO, just a 5k at lead, going to get countered out of. And then we're going to see the Gecko Moria come down. Gecko Moria is likely just going to grab Rebecca, maybe the Suru here to take Sanji down to a 1 cost, allowing Lucci to KO here. Rebecca's going to return back, likely Spandine, and then there is enough cards in the yard to do the old little combo again. So we're just going to, go ahead and throw 3 cards down here. Perfect, exactly what he needed. A lot of CP cards already in the trash. There's still more in there, and then going to get a Lucci. Lucci's going to return those 2 Ice Ages, another CP card, to the bottom of the deck. Maybe would have returned that Uta instead of a CP card. Just want to kind of maximize the amount of CP cards in the yard at this point. And we've Rebecca into Spandine into Lucci's 2 turns in a row. Very, very back-breaking. Though luckily for Luffy's side, Lucci did not KO 2 targets, and he still has his 10-drop Luffy around. But that Rebecca hanging out there is just not very good. But we do have an answer for Rebecca. We've got a Sanji coming out here. Sanji really great in the Luffy deck here, just being able to kind of deal with pesky blockers, trying to keep the offensive on here. We've got 7k going into lead here. Opponent's got 2 2Ks in hand, and that's it. So opponent might just cash in those 2 2Ks. But could just take it here. If he pulls a 2k off life, could protect himself against the 10k swing here, but things are not looking good. We're going to see another 7k going into lead here, and opponent did pick up a Rebecca, so could go 2k, 1k, does have another Gecko Moria in hand, which is, oh man, that's just very unfortunate for Luffy here. Actually, is that another Gecko Moria, or was that a Kaido? That might actually be a Kaido in hand there, but 2k, 2k, 1k, I think that's an Uda, and I think the last card is a Kaido, I can't tell. I've got it. No, I think it's a Sabo. Is that a Sabo? I cannot tell. It looks like all the counter is on the right side of his hand. No, I think it's a. I can't even tell. But anyways, if it's a Gecko, it's great, right? Fantastic. It's what you want to see. Gonna go ahead and give 2Ks to get out of it. It likely means that it's not a Gecko in hand because he's putting extra emphasis on the Rebecca that he's got in hand. He could have just easily 2k, 1k out of a 7k hit, but he's not going to. Gonna go ahead and take the 10k and go to 0 here. Opponent decides to leave one up for likely here a Gum Gum Giant. Gum Gum Giant notably is going to set him back to a 9 Dawn on the next turn instead of the golden 10. Typically you want to be at 10 because you can resolve a 9-drop Luffy and still hold up a 9-drop Luffy or a Lin Lin and still hold up Gum Gum Giant on the following turn. Being at 9 Dawn, a little awkward for Luffy here, but there's a lot of Dawn minusing happening as well. Opponent's separating the Dawn out here. Got 3 Dawn, or 3 Dawn holding right now. 7 Dawn remaining. Likely 4 of that Dawn's going to be used for Rebecca here, but I think we're just going to go ahead and start swinging here. We're going to see an 8k go into Sanji. Going to get a 2k out of hand here, and then I think opponent's just trying to pressure what he can pressure, because based on what he's got in hand, he's definitely not going to be able to deal with this 10-drop Luffy here, and opponent just decides to let it go here. Likely maybe a little afraid of the Gecko swinging into the Luffy here, and oh my goodness, I think he does. Does he not have a Gum Gum Giant? Was he just bluffing it there? Oh man, what a see-through play for Lucci's side. Lucci just not even respecting the potential of a Gum Gum Giant in hand, just swinging right into his characters with just a little overhead here. That was a 12k into a 10k here, and opponent just loses both of his characters. His hand must be not looking very good right now. Maybe had an Usohachi in hand, but that Usohachi definitely needs to be used to take out some blockers. But oh man, opponent not looking in a great spot right now. Lucci's hand is coming together a little bit again. Does look like he's got 2 2Ks and a 1K. Man, those Rebeccas doing work. Those Rebeccas just bringing back 2Ks. Just continuously refilling Lucci's hand. As Lucci continues to exhaust it. And yeah, that's 5k counter in hand here. So if opponent like double Usohachis and swings 9k, the Lucci player is just gonna easily be able to counter out of that here. So Luffy's in a bit of a spot here, a bit of an awkward spot. Got the Gecko Moria on board, got 2 Luccis, 2 Rebeccas. So those Rebeccas completely stymie his ability to go for game. It also completely stymies his ability to just swing onto the board here as well. Looking at it, looks like he does have 2 Usohachis in hand, so definitely could just get really ballsy and just swing 2 Usohachis, but likely that's not what you want to do here. Just with 6 cards in hand for Lucci's side, especially seeing him pick up a 2k last turn likely means that he has a bit more counter in hand. Though I have caught Lucci with less counter in hand, so it can definitely happen here. A good old Zoro is going to go ahead and look at top 4. Going to grab a good old Gum Gum Giant. There's the Gum Gum Giant we wanted last turn. Gonna see another 4-drop. We're gonna see a Nami come down. Punish is cycling out hand here, trying to look for some better cards. But now we're just gonna see, I just see a 5k go at lead here. Only 2 life, likely means he has 2 Gum Gum Giants, or at least he's bluffing a second Gum Gum Giant. You could always draw into it, right? But man, double Gum Gum Gianting yourself down to 8 Dawn on the next turn. It's gonna be pretty awkward. That kind of shuts off the 9-drop Luffy. Though with the at least 1 Usohachi, maybe 2 Usohachis in hand, my opponent is kind of looking for a way out here. 2 Rebeccas, pretty hard to get through, especially for Purple Luffy. Not a lot of ways to clear bodies here, especially 0 power bodies. Can rest bodies, but does decide to go ahead and throw away 1 Usohachi. That kind of takes away from the final plan here, but he does have to survive, right? Being at 2 life is like somewhat safe. Does have a blocker on board. Could have just cashed the blocker in earlier, but definitely wants to cash it out in places that He only has to exchange one card from hand here, and we're just going to see a 9k. 9k is likely going to set him down to 1. If not, I would definitely fire off the Gum Gum Giant here. There's no reason not to, but decides to just take it. The worst thing he could do is swing 10k with Rebecca to take you down to 1 or take you down to 0, but still, opponent just gonna lose his board here to the Kaido. Good old Kaido coming down here. So there was a Kaido in hand. Discards a non-counter of his hand. I think opponent should have discarded a card as well, unless he did. I must have missed that. I did see the Zoro go, but the other half of Kaido's ability, your opponent does have to trash a card as well. So if they did, then they did. But if they didn't, call it out in the comments. I might have missed that here. There's a lot of information I'm trying to juggle here, but opponent is in. Luffy is in a bad spot right now. Gave up an Usohachi, gave up his way to rest both Rebecca's here. Just gonna swing 5k. 5k is just gonna immediately get eaten by 1k counter in hand, and then gonna play out a Lin. Decides to pitch a Gum Gum Giant. Looks like he's already got 1 in hand, so I guess last turn he might have had 2, or else he drew that one for turn. Definitely very curious why he didn't go for at least 1 Gum Gum Giant last turn. To at least keep himself at 1, he could. But if opponent decided to swing 10k with Rebecca, that's like completely fine because they just tapped a blocker, right, and just took up their whole turn. So Luffy would have been at least 2 this turn, which would have been a bit better here. Gonna see a solid 7k. We're gonna counter out of. Now we're gonna see a 9k swing. There's gonna be a second 9k swing coming in this turn. It may even be higher. And then opponent has a crutch to fall back on, and that's gonna be the Gum Gum, or not the Gum Gum Giant, but the Gecko Moria in hand. Gecko Moria. I don't know if opponent has another Rebecca in yard, but if they do, that's gonna pretty much sum up the game here. Now we've seen all the Usohachis leave the Luffy player's hands, which was kind of his out for taking out, at least resting the Rebecca's to try to push through. But this is just quite a wall to get through here, and a 9k swing just gonna take that life here, and then. Now has 8 Dawn, right? So likely gonna just be slamming down the Gecko. Why not? Why wouldn't you slam down a Gecko at this point? Though if you slam down the Gecko, you're gonna be eating up some of your blockers, because you're gonna need at least 3 spaces on board here if you want to go the full Gecko play here. So maybe cashing in a Kaido here. Definitely want to keep those blockers around, because those are gonna be your ways of surviving here. Though. Nice of Luffy to put Lucci at 1 life though, so it's gonna make a double-edged sword here for Lin's ability. Yes, in most spots it's great to stick a card on your opponent's life though. In this specific instance, it actually is hurting him a little bit here. Does he have another Rebecca? He does have another Rebecca. He's swapping out a Rebecca with a Rebecca, and then grabbing a 2k back to hand off the Rebecca effect. That's the only thing he's gonna be pulling back. So Lucci had 3 Rebeccas in yard. 2 Geckos in hand. I wish Lucci played that well for me when I played it. But now we're gonna go back to opponent's turn. 9 Dawn, 2 Rebeccas, multiple cards in hand. We saw him just add another 2k to hand. I think a 2k he added earlier is still in his hand. So opponent's probably aware of at least 2ks in hand. And we're gonna see a Trafalgar Law come down. Trafalgar Law is gonna look top 4, grab a Straw Hat card of cost of 2 or more. We'll see what opponent decides to grab here. Looked like there was a Zoro Juro in hand, which is a potential target. And I think it's a 0 cost event and a Gum Gum Giant. Now you can't grab that Gum Gum Giant off of the Trafalgar Law, and I think opponent catches it right as he starts to put the cards away here, and that is the Zoro Juro. So Luffy player being aware of the potential misplay that they could have made, but Zoro Juro not what you wanted to see. Does have another Usohachi in hand, but I think at this point was just kind of looking for 2 Usohachis. Gonna play a Zoro Juro out. Gonna look at the top 5. Look for a purple Straw Hat card. Just not finding what he needs here. Really wanted some additional counter. Just picks up the 1k counter San Goro. But man, things are not looking good at this point. Luffy's just been able to control the game in one way, more than one way. Early game with board control, late game with blockers, and just putting your opponent out of their misery. And good old Luffy decides to scoop it up. Lucci ends up taking the game here and just discussing a little bit of what Usohachi could have done. But yeah, unfortunately, Luffy just didn't see what he needed, and Lucci saw everything he needed. And unfortunately, that's just how the matchup goes sometimes. Lucci is pretty favored into Luffy. Luffy definitely struggles when you deal with his board, especially if he's not pressuring you down fast enough. But I think Luffy gave it definitely a good shot. Could have been a different game if Lucci wasn't so lucky. But anyways, if you enjoy this type of content, definitely subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.